Hello and welcome to 5 Year Club video number 203. Tonight I'm going to do 2 videos to help catch up to where I need to be. There are 12 missing. So I'm going to read 2 stories in these 2 separate videos from the Japanese Family Storehouse. That will bring us to the end of chapter 3, and then we can go to chapter 4 eventually, but probably not tonight. Let's get going. This video is going to be the man who built the cenotaph of debts on Mount Koya. And what in the heck is a cenotaph? Let's see. A cenotaph is an empty tomb or a monument erected in honor of a person or group of people whose remains are elsewhere. All right. Well, there we go. That's what a cenotaph is. Do I got a cat behind me? I heard something. Yep, it's Molly. All right, let's go. Everything has its season, and no amount of weeping will stop flowers from fading or men from dying. Still, while we are alive, care of health must be our first consideration. Why do people go on drinking dangerous swellfish soup when rock cod tastes exactly the same and is perfectly harmless? And why, when their wives are on hand from the bridal night till old age, to be taken when required like fish from a private pond, do people willfully exhaust their strength in promiscuous living? These are not recoverable losses, but remain on the books for a lifetime. It is in things like this that people should observe moderation, and if you want to live a long life, bear this in mind. Lectures of this sort are often given to clerks by straight-laced old employers, and long ago in Imabashi Street in Osaka, there was a notorious skinflint, a man of great wealth who lived his whole life in accordance with such precepts. He was a bachelor, and his economy-inspired daily diet was completely innocuous. Even he, however, perhaps from sheer boredom, departed this world in the prime of life. Since he had no heirs, the whole of his remaining gold and silver was presented to a temple, and there, by paying 48 masses for his departed soul, it performed the only useful service it had ever rendered him. But before long, the money which had lain hidden year after year in his strong room, innocent of the world, was circulating from hand to hand, helping Kukinsho brothel keepers to settle their monthly tradesmen's bills and Dotonbori theater managers to pay their actors' salaries. The designs on the surface of the silver coins were rubbed smooth with use, and people laughed to think that at last the man's money had worn itself out in the gay quarters. This miserly fellow, who died at the age of 57, was born in a 10th year of the dragon, and it was also in a 10th year of the dragon, on a dragon day at the dragon hour, that he died. This amazing coincidence prompted a scholar of occult lore to consult the Almanac of Three Existences, and after some research he discovered that the miser had formerly been the golden cat presented to the priest Saigyo by Lord Yoritomo, the Kamakura shogun. Through chance contact with such an illustrious person, it had at length been born into the human world. And although its body was of gold, it could naturally not spend it. The fact that this gold had become a plaything for other people's children was also fated, for Saigyo had held the golden cat in his arms for only a few moments, and had then presented it to the boys of the village. Generations of people reading this story in the old chronicles had felt envious of these boys at the mere thought of that precious cat, and the late miser had been born from the crystallization of all these greeds. Wow, this is starting out as a really abstract kind of story. To make a fortune, some assistance from fate is essential. Ability alone is insufficient. There are highly intelligent people plagued with poverty, and fools blessed with riches, a double injustice, which even the treble-headed deity of luck can do nothing to rectify. Or a man may follow the injunctions of Bishamon of Kurama, driving himself as mercilessly as if he had 100 legs to spare, like the Bishamon's centipedes, and yet fail to become rich. There is nothing that can be done about this either, but such a man is sure at least of heaven's compassion and his neighbor's sympathy. And how do others fare? Too idle to follow an honest trade, they yet have splendid mansions raised, make every meal a banquet of the finest wines and foods, stuff their wardrobes full with suits and fancy accessories, and mix with people far beyond their station. Oh, there that caste system comes into our story tonight. Their money, lavished on courtesans and actors, disappears as rapidly as a row of badly finished stitching, and if sewing needles were koban, a storehouse full would never pay their bills. But so long as they can maintain appearances on other people's money, their credit never fails, and the more they borrow, the less they intend to repay. Barefaced deceit of this nature makes a daylight robber, stretching out his hand to snatch your money, seem an honest tradesman by comparison. Oh, well, that was really poor reading by me. All right, let's reread that sentence. But so long as they can maintain appearances on other people's money, their credit never fails, and the more they borrow, the less they intend to repay. Barefaced deceit of this nature makes a daylight robber, stretching out his hand to snatch your money, seem an honest tradesman by comparison. It is their intention, at some distant date, to declare themselves bankrupt, and since they are fully resolved on this as much as 5 or 7 years in advance, they split their property forthwith and set up a younger brother as head of a collateral household, sufficiently independent to escape liability. If they live in Kyoto, they arrange to purchase a residence in Fushimi under someone else's name, and if they are Osaka people, they get their relation in the country to buy them farmland for them. When the question of where to retreat has been satisfactorily settled, they surrender the empty shell of their property to their creditors and curl up defiantly on a soft bed of dishonored bills. If, through the intercession of the neighborhood group, they are offered the chance to rebuild their fortunes, settling their debts in yearly installments, they seem strangely embarrassed and ungrateful. They leave the district for good, and, as far as the world can see, they have surrendered everything, even the ashes under the stove. By the next quarter day, on the 3rd of the 3rd moon, they are drinking their cups of festival wine with not a care in the world. There was once a bankruptcy case involving debts of 11 kanmei, in which there were 86 creditors. The remaining effects of the bankrupt were valued at only 2 kanmei, 500 manmei, and the creditors met together day after day to settle the matter of their shares. As no one stinted himself at these meetings, the petty expense book grew black with entries of macaroni noodles, sake relishes, and sweetmeats of every kind. For more than half a year they frittered away precious time until all the money under debate had disappeared. At the final settlement, each was obliged to contribute 4 fun 5 rin from his own pocket, and, exchanging bows of abject apology and looking very foolish, they set off on their round of the ward to offer small tokens of gratitude to the local officials. When, in Otsu long ago, a man who owed 1,000 kanmei went bankrupt, people thought there could never be another case to equal it, but nowadays in Kyoto and Osaka, bankruptcies of 3,000 or 2,500 kanmei are not uncommon. Such things, of course, can hardly occur in small towns in remote provinces. It is only in a place like Osaka, the greatest port in Japan, where there are people to lend such sums and people to borrow them. For the borrower, too, must be a merchant worthy of the name. Even if a man borrows only for the glory of the thing, it is said, 100 kanmei is the limit of one's credit. Many years ago, in Inoko-jima in Osaka, There was a respected merchant called Izuya who, through circumstances beyond his control, was obliged to go bankrupt. With his head bowed in genuine shame, he expressed his regrets to his creditors and surrendered to them the whole of his property, which amounted to 65% of his total debts. Resolved to honor his obligations in full and to repay the remaining 35% at some future opportunity, when his luck should change, he left town and returned to his native place, the island of Oshima in Izu province, to seek assistance from his relatives. Working at a trade ceaselessly day and night, he was inspired with such determination to recover his fortune that he managed to make a considerable sum of money. Once more he made the journey to Osaka, and there he paid up every penny of his debts, which had remained unsettled since his bankruptcy. 17 years had elapsed from that time, and some of his creditors had disappeared to distant parts of the country. He offered their portions to the goddess at the great shrine of Ice. Again, 6 or 7 of the creditors had died, and for those who had no descendants to receive their money, he erected a stone memorial in a temple on Mount Koya, before which he had prayers said for their souls. He called this the cenotaph of debts. One would search history in vain to find a parallel for such honesty. And that is the end of the story. Here is the picture. Izuya's debts are paid. And let's see if I can... I know the focus there is not great. I will try to take a picture of it. And that is it for 5-Year Club video number 203. 204 is coming out in just a few minutes. Hope you enjoy it. Going to start uploading this one right now. Have a fabulous evening.